Hello, I'm Michael Hainsworth. You remember when the federal government announced last year a plan to reduce the portion of the country's temporary residents to 5% of the total population. It gave itself to the end of 2026 to achieve what it saw as the goal of correcting years of unsustainable immigration growth. Today, it's 7.1%, only 23 basis points lower than where it was a year ago, with 1 year left to go. This is the CD House Parisa Mahboubi. She states the goal was never realistic on the proposed timeline. She joins us now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can we establish, please, out of the gate, that when we talk about temporary residents, we're not talking about people entering the country illegally?
No, when we are talking about temporary residence, it includes generally, broadly, three types of categories. International students who arrive by, they had a permit to arrive in Canada, temporary foreign workers, and also those who are basically applied for asylum system. These individuals may have arrived illegally, but immediately they, either at some point during the time when they were in Canada, they applied through the asylum system and obtained their claimants.
You point out that achieving the goal of reducing the temporary resident population to 5% of the country required not only tighter admission rules, but a coordinated strategy across four key systems. What would that strategy across education, labor, immigration, and enforcement need to look like?
So basically, as you highlighted, that temporary residence, it includes a broad several categories. And to be able to manage those, we have to consider all elements within the overall category. And to be able to do that, we know, for example, international students are mainly managed by provinces. And also in terms of temporary foreign workers, they obtain their permits through federal government. But basically, they work in provinces and they benefit employers. So the coordination is really important across all levels of governments, and also in regards to educational institutions like universities, colleges, and also in the discussion with employers, because it's not just about the number, and also it's about the type of temporary residents we are admitting, and to be able to benefit from those, because we need them, but we need also to manage how and who we admit.
Well, as you point out, it's not just about the number, but when it comes to the number, do we even know for sure that the temporary resident percentage is even 7.12%? You point out we don't have the infrastructure necessary to track where temporary residents go, or even if they're still here?
So that's a problem that we have highlighted in the past through City House publications, pointing that, so Canada basically tracks individuals who arrive in Canada. We know how many immigrants and temporary residents arrive, but unfortunately, we don't track those individuals who leave the country. And because of that, we don't have a realistic and actual number of people in Canada when it comes to counting temporary residents. This has been a concern since the numbers increased significantly. In the past, it wasn't a big issue because numbers weren't that much high, and it wasn't concerning for the country. And then when it grows significantly, then when we compare, for example, some official numbers from the government at all levels, IRCC, Immigration Canada, and also Statistics Canada, we realize actually it seems we are missing a large number of people. And some of these estimates, they are based on assumptions. For example, Statistics Canada assumes that these people, those with temporary, with a work permit or a student visa, they leave the country at least few months after the expiry, which cannot be true necessarily.
The scandal of diploma mills churning out foreign students who never even attended classes kind of triggered this plan. In this sense, is the plan working?
So the reason that actually the plan started to become a problem is that during the COVID time, the government removed the restriction on the number of hours international students can work, because they wanted to increase the increase the supply of labor in the labor market, and government unfortunately thought they can count on international students. But ultimately, international students should be here to study, not to work necessarily. And many of those individuals use the international student work permit to be able just to be in Canada and work. And that caused lots of problems and attracted many individuals whose main target wasn't studying to arrive in Canada. And still today, there are some reports that some of those international students, although they arrive with an international student visa, but they don't attend any classes. We are still facing that problem, and we need to address that. But it picked its issue during the COVID time.
But it sounds to me like that issue is no longer an issue. We've seen reaction from the colleges community. Many of them are finding themselves under serious financial troubles. Have we actually solved the problem of people coming into this country on one premise and then doing something else? Is this working? Or is Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, the solution?
Bill C-2 to some extent can help, but it's not going to resolve all the issues we have. The problem is that there is a disconnection in terms of the communication between institutions and Immigration Canada in terms of, for example, who should receive work permits. Right now, there were some reforms. The government now requires a letter of admission from students to submit. But still, there might be, it is still possible to commit fraud within this system unless we improve our system and also create a better collaboration between institution and Immigration Canada. If we can create one system that can be tracked, who receive admissions, who arrive, that work better for to be able to actually reduce fraud in the system.
I want to come back to something that you touched on just a moment ago. If the solution is a shift in focus towards attracting high-quality applicants and supporting sectors of our economy that benefit the most from a temporary resident application, how do we build a credible and coordinated approach to bringing them in?
So, in terms of, for example, when it comes to international students, we know that some of these decisions are in hand of provinces. So provinces actually they create a list of designated institutions that they can have international students. This is something that is really important for provinces to focus on those institutions that they really provide high quality education to international students, and also remove those bad players from the list. Unfortunately, over the time, the list has been growing.
And what about, broadly speaking, temporary residents coming into this country? How do we ensure that they get to where the economy needs them the most and that we're bringing in the people that the economy needs?
So in terms of temporary foreign workers, we do have two streams. One of them is the ones that, for example, employers need to apply for those workers to be able to obtain work permit. This is where government has more control, and they need to make sure that, for example, those employers really in need of temporary foreign workers there is no way to find labor in Canada with those with similar qualifications to address their labor shortages. But there are other streams under temporary foreign worker program that it's out of, the government has no control over that, because it's, some of them is under trade agreements or different, type of workers. For example, international students after graduation, they are able to work in Canada. So it's not that much easy to control the numbers, but at least to the extent that comes to temporary foreign workers, government needs to really focus on those jobs that is impossible to address labor shortages under those, for example, type of occupations or regions.
You also wrote that the demographic slowdown has arrived and that Canada's population growth is nearly halted. The economic engines of the country, Ontario, BC, they're suffering the most. If immigration is the main driver of population growth, and population growth feeds economic growth, what does this tell us about our immigration policy?
So in terms of immigration, there is no doubt that we need immigrants. And more than temporary immigration, we need permanent immigrants who can stay in Canada and contribute in the long term. And we know for the fact that some of these temporary immigrants, they eventually become permanent immigrants and stay, in Canada as a permanent resident. So one thing that is really important to consider, again, I'm going back to the first statement. It shouldn't be only about the quantity. We should also focus on the quality of those that we are admitting. If we bring rights in terms of the quality of immigrants, either temporary or permanent, we are able to achieve economic goals and to improve our economic situation, for example, the productivity and economic growth, if we do it right, if the system, for example, prevent frauds, if we are going to make sure that we know who are we admitting, we know, for example, the type of occupations in terms of the skills that temporary foreign workers or temporary residents have, where they are settled and how they contribute to the economy. This is really important that unfortunately is missing.
So I can see that the labor force increases need to be met with broader planning, but also investment. What should investment look like?
So in terms of the investment, unfortunately, we are under investment, even when it comes to public or private sector. And for example, one of the issues that we are facing even within immigration system is under investment in terms of the processing time and investment in general in how we process things in Canada, and also in terms of the capital investment. So one way to encourage greater investment in Canada is to make sure that immigration doesn't prevent that type of investment. What does it mean? It means that, for example, preventing low quality, cheap labor in Canada, it's something that actually contribute to low investment. When the labor is significant, the number of laborers and employers are able to easily find labor in Canada, they don't invest, for example, in training, they don't invest in capital to address some of the issues they are facing. So when the government wants to admit those immigrants and temporary immigrants, they need to really consider whether there is a better way to address the issues we are facing, not just looking at immigration to solve all problems we have.
So if Ottawa wants to cut temporary resident populations by 200 basis points in 2 years, but has only managed 20 basis points in 1 year, what is a more realistic way to go about it?
When it comes to international students, focusing on quality not only ensures that we have right number of international students in Canada, and also institutions and Canadians all benefit from that, because in the long term, international students are a best source for permanent immigration. So focusing on quality when it comes to international students, and also in terms of temporary foreign workers, we need to make sure that employers, they have no other ways of addressing the labor shortages to admit those individuals, and focus on quality and high skilled labor.
Parisa, as always, great speaking with you. Thank you for your time and insight.
Thank you for having me.
Parisa Mahboubi is a senior policy analyst with the C.D. Howe Institute. To read more on demographics and immigration, visit cdhowe.org. I'm Michael Hainsworth. Thank you for joining us.